Hi, students. How are you doing? I trust that you are doing well. My name is Teacher Edith, and I'm going to take you through collective bargaining. That is a unit under the human resource management. So what do we understand by the word collective bargaining? So we define these terms in two ways. First, bargaining is an agreement, and it takes two parties to make a bargain, whilst collective bargaining are set up agreements between management, employers, associations, or joint employer negotiating bodies, that is FKE, and trade unions to determine specified terms and conditions of employment for groups of employees. The process of collective bargaining occurs only when a trade union, that is employees, is involved. Hence, the term only applies to relations between the employees, that is the trade union, and the employers. It is a long-lasting process because once it is negotiated, it is reviewed from time to time as conditions may necessitate. So I hope we've understood that point. And in case of any questions, you can type on the chat or you can raise your hand. So we go forth to the nature of collective bargaining. So the nature of collective bargaining is that workers do not negotiate individually on their own, but they do so collectively through trade union representatives. So it only takes place when there is a trade union recognized by the management. Once there is a union recognized by management, you cannot deal with workers on an individual basis. Collective bargaining agreements should aim to provide the basis for maintaining a good employee relations, climate, and harmonious relationships with trade unions and employees generally. So what this is saying is that employees cannot negotiate on their own. They need a body, and that body is a trade union that represents them. Moving forward, collective bargaining agreements, however, can only function when there is willingness by the workers and their trade union officials to be involved. The power to force the employer to accept negotiations. Willingness by management to accept that decisions affecting workers must be agreed on between the two parties before they are implemented. I hope we are flowing nicely. Yeah. We're moving forward to collective bargaining agreements content. So what do we need in order to for us to know that we are in an agreement? So first, the contract has to have the names of the parties, that is the employer and the trade union. Like I said, it is the trade union that represents the employees. It is not the employees individually that do that. So it's between the employer and the trade union. Number two is that the duration to be covered by the agreement, provision for its renewal, signatures of the parties' officials, job security, termination, promotion, demotion, and also transfers, limitation of strikes, lockouts, and picketing, grievance and dispute procedures, and also management rights. So these contents are supposed to be in the collective bargaining agreement. Now, so what are the basis of a collective bargaining agreement? Number one is that there should be communication, which is seen in a way that communicating workers' expectations, fears, threats, anxieties, promises, rights, duties, and limitations. Another one is a sanction and legitimization, which should be legal. Involves recognition of the power of the employer generally and the power of the same to provide or impose a remedial, collective, or individual punishment. The last one is the leeway and discretion. Collective bargaining agreement legitimizes alteration of terms according to circumstances. I hope you are flowing nicely. So moving forward to now, what are employees in demand for? What do they need? So they need allowances. They could be an increase of allowances, i.e. house allowance, leave allowance, travel allowance, also reimbursement of these expenses, and we also have a shift allowance. So this is basically like what are employees what are they preaching against? What don't they like? What needs to be done better for them? So number 2 is the jobs security. A growing area of concern is job security, but the increasing rationalization and automation is causing threats. Welfare benefits. This includes house loans, pay of life group, accident insurance premium of the employer, education of children, allowance, and facilities. Right. Basis of collective bargaining agreements. So we have the major steps that we follow in collective bargaining. Number 1 would be recognition of each other on the legitimate representation of employers or employees. That is, the recognition agreement must exist first. Number 2 is that making of proposals by one party and then the counter proposals by the other. Joint meetings depending on the number and weight of issues. Failure to reach an agreement leads to deadlock registration. Thus, it becomes a trade dispute. As collective bargaining cannot be compelled, it's based on the principle of voluntarism. If you agree on all issues, then you sign in an agreement, which is endorsed and sent to the Chief Industrial Relations Officer, who looks at the legal and economic implications before taking it to the industrial courts, which registers it. So as you've seen that, it should be voluntary. Yeah. This agreement should be voluntary. Issues in most CBAs, and this is where I'm going to give you an assignment, which we'll look at it in the next class. The CBA has provisions to deal with specific issues as they arise. These can be dealt with under any of the following. So number 1 would be substantive agreements, procedural agreements, distributive agreements, bargaining, integrative and productivity deals. So from here, I want you to go and do more research, and then you can be able to understand how these issues arise and how they can be dealt with. Yes, and for that, unless there is a question, I'm going to see you in the next class, and I'll be expecting that in the next class you'll be able to define these terms and to also highlight the issues that are faced under the collective bargaining agreements. Thank you so much and have a good day.